Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality of the best hair, and welcome to the reaction review of It Chapter 2. Now, since I don't do these too often, I've got to rattle down the basic rules of how this works. Number one, I just watched the movie. It just came out tomorrow, technically, but they don't do midnight showings at my theater, so I get to watch it a little bit early. Number two, this is not a long, drawn-out, cut everything apart review, since I don't have the footage. And number three, I can still do that review later if I do get the Blu-ray and rip the footage. But, It Chapter 2. First 10 minutes of this video or so, I'm going to try and be as spoiler-free as possible. And then after that, I'm going to just start breaking out the spoilers. Of course, It Chapter 2 being the sequel to the It movie that came out not too long ago that focused on the first half of the story from It, both, the novel, Stephen King novel, is based on a book, that's kind of how it works, and the 90s Tim Curry It TV movie, which was split into two parts, so it's technically a series that had two episodes that aired, like, one after the other. It's kind of confusing still. I still have no idea what in the hell is going on here. But when it comes to how well this follows that up, overall I'd say this does a very nice job following up the original, but it deviates greatly both compared to the original presentation of the 90s flick and the flow of the first chapter of It for this series. Now, I can't quite speak on the book because while I have done a decent amount of research here and there about what exactly was in the book, I haven't actually read the thing. It's a novel. It's literally what it is. So, I feel like I really should, because there is so much that goes into this particular flick. And, that's both good and bad. It's like a 3-hour movie. And it feels it. You don't feel like, oh, well, that was over so fast. Wow, no. Things take a fucking while. And you never have too great of a feeling of urgency to it, because things don't necessarily lead one to... There is a plot. It does connect the threads, but the things going on from scene to scene tend to be unique to that scene rather than the overall package, and it really makes it end up feeling a bit disjointed, which is kind of bad. I mean, the movie isn't like a horrible mess. It's not a bad movie, but it does feel disjointed, and it is very long. So take that for what it's worth. But also, like, the first chapter focused a lot on the kids, and here's what stuff that happened with the kids, and then we're gonna have the adults come around for Chapter 2, and the adults come around in Chapter 2, along with the kids, who are there for at least half the movie as well, because while the 90s movie was all focused around this is a big flashback everyone has, and they do their stuff, and now we're all getting together, and we're gonna face off against it and finish them off now, It Chapter 1 was, here's the kids, they're doing their thing in Derry, Maine. This is not a flashback, this is just what's happening. And then It Chapter 2 has them all get called up and come back, and then they all start having flashbacks to scenes that were not in It Chapter 1. It's all new material for the most... I mean, there's a couple of things, but the amount of things that were actually from It Chapter 1 are just like a couple of frames here and there, maybe a little bit of this and that, just... it did open up with a little refresher on where we are in the story, which I don't believe the 90s version had, because it wasn't really necessary, because it was pretty much just one big fucking movie. But here, it starts off with that. I'm like, okay, that's good for people who aren't quite in the know as to what they're getting into. It helps the movie stay... It makes sense on its own, but it is kind of like... But the amount of damn flashbacks all throughout was like, wow. I mean, there are flashbacks to all kinds of little aspects, some that were kind of skipped over on the first movie, others that I'm not sure if they're from the movie or from the novel, or if they maybe just made them for this particular film. But yeah, there's there's a lot to unpack. It is usually when I sit down to do one of these, I can easily say, okay, it was about this quality, it was about this kind of stuff, it flowed this well. And that's really the thing where It Chapter 2 is kind of the thing that stuck with me is the flow, because it has very little regard for the flow of the movie when it comes to the flow of the scenes. You have, like, the first 20 minutes, they play about as you'd expect. You get the recap of where we are so far, and it plays out kind of like it did in the 90s movie. And then we get a new little adventure thrown in, and then everything just kind of becomes this long series of flashbacks and horror sets and things that they are entertaining to watch. They are very well acted. James McAvoy was Bill, and dear God, did I love his performance. James McAvoy is quickly becoming my favorite actor. I just don't know why. He's awesome. If I ever have a movie and I want to be played by someone who doesn't look a damn thing like me, but I feel like he could actually be me because his acting's just that damn good, I'd take James McAvoy. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Some things that were actually explored in Chapter 1 that didn't necessarily happen until they grew up kind of happen again, but it kind of doesn't matter because they do explain why everyone forgot everything. So they still forgot everything, so you get to explore that again. Woo! And it still makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, well, I was kind of hoping that effect in the first movie would have changed the trajectory of events a little bit, but guess not. But the big things, you get like 20 minutes opening, goes about as you'd expect. Then you get all these long, drawn-out scenes. Then you get the big climax when everything comes back together again, and that has more of your traditional kind of movie flow. Excuse me. Before I sat down to do this, I had some Taco Bell, and it's having me. But the general flow of events, like this scare leads to this event, leads to this going on, there's still some semi-disjointed aspects about it, but only in the ways that really make sense for the setting. So it all came together a lot more like what I was kind of expecting out of it towards the end, until you get to the ending, which is it's kind of funny because, like, the whole film, they're kind of making jokes about Stephen King endings being disappointing, and it's like they went to correct that and they kind of overcorrected, in my opinion, because there's not one little loose end that they did not want to tie up, and that takes a while. So yeah. And also, fair warning to anyone out there with epilepsy. Only really happens twice in this film where you just got the strobe light flashing going on. But it does happen, and it happens for quite a while during the climax. So that could be a problem for you. But overall, I'd like to say, I feel It Chapter 2 comes in at a very strong 4. Like, not strong like strongly seated in 4. Like, if I did half points, this would be a 4.5 pretty easily, because it's a great movie with really good acting. The effects, some of them are just kind of like, some of the CGI, you could tell is CGI. It's 2019. It is what it is, and to complain about it feels like waste of breath. So, yeah. But it really, there's a lot of aspects that all come together, and it really is unique in how it kind of, I don't know, it's so disjointed but so connected. It's every little tiny bit, you can find all sorts. I feel like this is one of the movies that's going to be better the more times you see it, because there's so damn many things. And it's got a kind of nice twist, in my opinion, but that should be saved for the spoilerific little part. And, yeah, I hope that didn't spoil too much in the first bit, because, hey, Spoiler warning. We're getting into the spoilers. Yeah. My favorite. Now, the opening, like I said, it kind of starts off with the kids and what happened in the last movie. And the kids, they're acted by the same kids, and I'm pretty sure they filmed most of the scenes for this movie when they filmed the last movie. But they do a very good job with a couple of scenes where I'm not entirely sure if they had the adult actors yet. And they have some interaction with the adult and child actors. And I'm pretty sure they didn't have the adult actors yet. And yeah, they do things like you have one part where young Bill is in the background. You see him come down the stairs into his flooded basement. And then grown-up Bill comes up because there's, strange trans-dimensional flashback / alternate dimension / trick from Pennywise horror shit going on in your brain, and he just swims up from the cave into his flooded basement from under, and he's looking, and then you get like the close-up shot of Bill there, and then you get the close-up shot of old Bill, and it's focused on him, and you see young Bill in the back, but he's out of focus. So I'm thinking, okay, that shot could have been done with just a similarly built kid over there. Because you never really see their faces together. There are parts where they are very close together, but at no single point do you see both of their faces, like, side by side. So, that works out pretty well. Also, the opening, before things really catch up with the Losers Club and everything, there's this little scene, Derry's having a festival, and you have the couple at the fair is enjoying themselves, and it's two guys, and it's coming off like, okay, yeah, they look like a couple, and then it's like they just can't help but try and make it as crystal clear as possible as the one who's like, hey, I got you a hat, and it's I Love Derry, and it's like a beaver tail on it and stuff, and he's like, I'm really not much for beaver, but thanks for the hat. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Make out. So it's like, hey, by the way, did you catch that these guys are gay? Because they're gay as fuck. So, but at the same time, it's like, while that felt like, hey, the subtlety worked already. You don't have to go that fucking far. Actually, maybe they did, because the one character really wasn't long for this world, and one of the reasons why the big gang of assholes came by and put him in the situation, well, beat the shit out of him and tried to kill him, and the other one was like, I don't know if they tried to kill him, but if they didn't, then they were doing a really bad job, because they would have killed him anyway, probably. So, yeah, you got the gang, the homophobe gang, and he gets some good jabs back at him, and then they, beat the shit out of him, throw him into the water, and his boyfriend runs down there to try and get him, and the guy's caught by Pennywise, and that's our first Pennywise is back kill of the movie. And, so yeah, considering it goes quite that fast, I guess if you tried to rely too much on subtlety, someone might wonder why this homophobic gang just beat this man to death if his homosexuality was too subtle for half the audience to notice. So, but that's the first kill that really gets older Mike to start calling everyone up like it's back, as opposed to the little girl in the 90s movie. And then he calls everyone up, and you get kind of the same effect, except there's no big flashback right then, but everyone does get, terrified, they get sick. They don't quite remember why yet, though. They just feel terrible, but they know they have to go back. Except for Stanley, who offs himself, but that's also explained, and that's really one of the things where it's like when they try and get all of the loose ends tied up as tightly as possible. I'm going to turn off my autofocus because it's driving me nuts. When it's goes and tries to tie up absolutely every loose end you can, evidently right before Stanley offed himself. He wrote a bunch of letters to the Losers Club, letting them know why he offed himself, because, hey, if the whole group isn't like 100% coherent and strong together, then it's going to use that weakness of one to kill all of them, and he knows he's not going to be that strong, so he needs to kill himself so that they can defeat it. He also could have just stayed home, but, yeah, that's one of the things where they try to tie up every single loose end they can, and some of them don't work quite as well as others. That's why I'm not saying this is a 5. Yeah, so everyone has their big get-together, come together. You have the scene in the Chinese restaurant where they all meet up, and that plays out a little better here, I think, than it did in the 90s movie, where everyone just kind of shows up and they're like, hey, by the way, where's Stanley? Oh, dead. Oh, well, let's get nice and drunk and, like, party and stuff, and then open up the fortune cookies. Oh my god, shit, horror things going around. Here, they all get together. They still don't know where Stanley is. They don't understand what's going on, but they're like, okay, he's late. Oh, well, who cares? Let's just get this party started. I'm hungry. I want a beer. Let's go. And they all start just catching up on things as best they can while still not remembering a damn thing and just being very surprised that they're actually starting to remember anything at all about Dairy Maine. And then they get to the fortune cookies, and the fortune cookies spell out a little bit, and they can't figure out what the hell the fortune cookies are supposed to be spelling out, although every fortune cookie had a different word, and everyone's arguing that Mike is fucking with them. But for some reason, they also don't notice that Beth has not given her word yet, and her word there was Stanley, and it's like, I can't remember what the actual, like, note was, but it pretty much was said, Stanley is fucking dead. Give or take. So, yeah. Then they're like, oh, shit. And then you get the little scene with the fortune cookies breaking open with the horror concoctions inside. And that's a bit of a give and take. It looked really good for what it was, but it was CGI. Like the shaking bowl and the things clicking around. It didn't look too bad, but even that, all the fortune cookies inside were CGI, and I'm thinking, can't you just get, like, a dude under the table with a magnet and go like this on a bowl of fortune cookies? Like, just a thought? Other things start coming out, and little eyeball with a little tentacle running around, horrible bug monster things, this thing with a fucking baby face is really creepy as shit. And just still had, like, for a little bit, the bird, the fetal unhatched bird thing, that was also among them for a little bit, like a little bit of a homage there. So, yeah, there's definitely some shit going on, but this is around where the movie deviates drastically from the story that I am familiar with, because Mike actually has a big plan as to how to defeat it. Because all these 27 years, he hasn't been just sitting around like, well, I guess I'll just wait and see if it's gonna fuck things up again. Whatever. He has done a lot of research as to exactly what the hell it even is, what its properties are, where it came from, how to defeat it. And so, he has pretty much he's got the demon containment vessel, and he's like, okay, Bill, here's the thing. You gotta get, like, high. Well, he didn't tell him you gotta get high. He just kind of, like, slipped some drugs into his drink. And I was like, okay, now we'll check this shit out, because it's gonna take you on a trip, and you're gonna see what it is, and it's gonna be awesome. Look at this shit, look at it. Okay, yeah, you follow me? It's from space, it's billions of years old, it's evil, and we can defeat it with this thing. Woo! But first, we need to get items of power. Or not objects of power, altered items, souvenirs from every single person, like, who was involved in the first movie. They gotta find something from the childhood, something that's important to them, and that's gonna have to be the sacrifice in order to be able to get this to work. And so they spend a good amount of the movie going around, doing all kinds of stuff like that, having their new flashbacks to new things to tell them about all kinds of things that were important to them so they could get that and actually have it come together. And Bill there, he ends up having a bit of a run-in with another kid who also has been getting contacted by it, and Bill's like, ah, shit. It's after this kid, and he's like, Bill, like, hey, kid, you hear a spooky clown in the drain? Like, don't pick up. And the kid's like, that's nice, mister, but I gotta go to the fair. And then Bill's there like, that ain't good. And then he gets a message later from Pennywise, and blood that's dripping upwards as you do, and it's like, you won't be able to save him either, you piece of shit. And Bill's like, fuck! He goes down to that fair, and he's like, I'm gonna save this dang kid. And he don't save that dang kid. That dang kid is fucking dead. And so then Bill's like, fuck! Okay, I can't save that kid, I couldn't save Georgie, you know what, I can save everyone else. If I'm the only one to go down into that well and kick Pennywise's ass. And everyone already knows that's what he's thinking, so they all just fucking go too. So it's like, well, I guess we're all here then. And they go down to that well, and they start having... That's the first thing where I remembered. Oh yeah, the old dark house. That's where it hangs out in this universe, in this particular continuity. Now, they didn't go over that again. That's one of the things where you kind of have to have seen the first movie to really remember that old dark house. And I have a few gags from the previous movie kind of coming back over, and it works out all right, I think. And then everyone goes down. They have their little horror experience, and then Mike's there, like, hey, okay, I got the vessel, I'm gonna do that demon containment ray shit, it's gonna be awesome. We're just gonna put this down here, start burning, like, all this stuff that was important in our past. Yeah. Burn, 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 burn. Everyone takes their trinkets, they throw it in the fire, it starts burning, and it's like, okay, everyone hold hands and be like, hey, those dead lights up there, like, light to darkness, fuck it. Like, just chant this shit. And they start chanting that shit, and like, don't look at the dead lights, though, that's a real bad idea. So they don't look at the dead lights. Chanting that shit, chanting that shit, chanting that shit, chanting that shit. And it's in the fucking vessel. And he's like, okay, lid goes on, boom. And then it's just coming the fuck out anyway. And he's like, lid goes on, boom. Lid goes on. Motherfuckers keep chanting because this shit, it needs to work. And that's the twist. It's like, surprise. Actually, he didn't finish the story about how the old guys defeated it. Because in case you thought that made any sense, that the old guys defeated it, but it was still around, well, it didn't, and that's because they didn't manage to defeat it. But Mike figured, it's probably because the guys there didn't actually, like, believe they could, so if he lied to all his friends and told them that they could, then they would believe they could, and then this'll work. It didn't. It did not. And it's like, shit. So you got Pennywise in his half-clown, half-giant spider monster form, going fucking things up for everyone. And, you've got, they come up with the new plan of how to defeat it. Which is not like in the 90s movie where they just kind of kick him over and rip his guts out, and like, like some really, like a pack of wild dogs. Not that. They defeat him like Freddy Krueger, which, it's been argued that there is a bit of a similarity between Pennywise and Freddy Krueger. But they take the Freddy Krueger route, and they're like, okay, we can defeat this motherfucker if we believe we can. He is what we believe he is. So, say, hey, Pennywise, You ain't a giant spider crab monster with tentacles. You're just a fucking clown. He's a little fucking pathetic ass clown with like, little, you can't do shit. You suck. And Pennywise is like, oh fuck, my one weakness. And he's like, going down, and they're like, yeah, Pennywise, you little piece of shit. Let's just rip your fucking heart out. And they rip his fucking heart out. And then everyone's like, hey guys, let's crush his heart together. And they all put their hands in. And they're like, yeah, crush your fucking heart. Yay! And that's a smash. You go, whew, that a dusty dust. Hey, don't feel very good, Mr. Stark, and Pennywise is out of there. Now hold on to your butts, because we still got like 20 minutes of movie left, as we gotta cover the ending. All of the ending. So much ending. Hey, this happened here, that happened there, this is what's going on with him, that's what's going on with him, this person ended up here, that person ended up there, this in the past here went to that, which went over here, and now this is doing this, and that's doing that, and let's have a little voiceover to talk about togetherness, and what it means to be a friend, or a loser, but a loser club, so you're still a winner, and it's just, everything is just going and going and going and going, and say, hey, what are you planning to do later? I don't know, I thought I'd get some Chinese. Oh, I don't want Chinese. I don't think that was actually in the movie. What is, there's just so many loose ends that they tie up, and yeah, like I said, the little letters from Stan were one of them, where it's just, hey, did you get your letter? What letter? You'll know when you see it. Oh, it's from Stan. He's explaining why he killed himself. Oh, it's because that's the only way we really could have won. It's like, maybe he could have just been like, terrified? Like, earlier you say, hey, it's because you're like, he's the weakest, which is why it got to him psychologically, and that's why he killed himself. And he's like, no, I'm the weakest, therefore I should probably kill myself, because that otherwise, you know, it could fuck everything up. Like I said, just things like that just kind of got me feeling, not quite. And it's nice to give a little more character to Stan, a little more than just, oh, what did he do? Fucking killed himself? Fucking. Oh, boy, okay, that is... Dang it. You record these things in the middle of the night and you expect no interruptions. Okay, but... I should probably see about finishing this up. So I'd say it's a 4, and a very strong 4, very high 4. There are still... What was I about to say before I got interrupted by the damn alarm? Oh, yes. One of the things about the horror in it is I feel like it had parts that came close to the horror in the first one, but this time it felt like it relied maybe a little more on jump scares, but even though it was, you know, it was me with jump scares, I could see it coming. It came exactly when I thought it was going to. I could see the fake one coming. I knew not to bother, because as soon as you open the thing, there's nothing fucking there, and then wait 2-3 seconds, there it is. So it's like, you had jump scares, but the rest of the movie was still put together well enough that I didn't really mind that so much. It didn't rely only on jump scares. It had them, it had quite a few of them, but that was not the only kind of horror they were attempting to do, and you really didn't have the, oh, I'm really just your friend jump scare. I think there was like a little bit, but not really, and then not really, so... yeah, but it Chapter 2. I'd say go see it if you have, like, 3 hours to spare, or more, because, you know, you gotta wait through all of the... Yes, I know! You gotta wait through all of the trailers and all that stuff. Fun. But, thank you all for watching. I've been Decker Shado. And remember, don't call back to the clown in the drain. It's... No, he does not have any information about your car's warranty. That's just what they say. Stop interrupting my send-off line.